sweaty Arizona Gene Lyons Sarah sex, it must be so delightful for the dogs. Because the smells that must be going on in their room, they must be like, this smells, what is this? There's something happening. They must love it.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Chat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me is my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And each week, we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie takes to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening all year. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. Find all information and past episodes at shatpod.com/TV. And finally, if you'd like to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatpod.com/Twitch, and our YouTube channel, where we play all of our Christmas video games, host watch parties, and edit this podcast live. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing tonight?
So, Gene, as we wind down 2024, and tonight is New Year's Eve. So everybody, as you're listening to this, hope you're doing well. It's been an eventful year for us personally and for the podcast. We just got out of the holiday seasons. We did a wonderful family film. So we thought, what would be a better way to end 2024 than a snuff film? Take us back into, the dark underground belly of twisted, violent porn. It's a perfect way to end the year, right, Gene? Is there anything more in 2024?
Honestly, this is the perfect bookend on the year.
This is the perfect. So we were excited when Mark B wanted us to round out the year by unraveling a dark and twisted tale of the underbelly of society in a quest to uncover the truth about the mysterious reel of film. So we were excited to go back to 1999 for the dark, suspenseful thriller, 8mm.
Hey, Shat crew, it's your boy Mark here from sunny Manchester, England. I just dropped you a quick note because I wanted to let you know I'm commissioning 8mm, Nick Cage film from the late 90s. That period of filmmaking, we had the likes of Seven, Memento, The Game with Michael Douglas, these edge of your seat thrillers with, just very darkly inspired themes. And I think 8mm is probably the darkest of all of those thrillers. If you've not seen it before, spoiler alert, bad things happen in this film. And I think it was very unfairly panned by the critics as well at the time. We had... we didn't have this viral TikTok, instant internet gratification that we have now. Back then, it was broadband internet. It was pre 9/11. The world just felt like a more safe, less exposed place, and we'd not been desensitized by the internet to the extent we are as a society today. And I think that's why this film, when it came out, did shock a lot of people because of its subject matter. I'm not going to ruin it for anyone who's not seen it, but it gets dark. I want to commission more films with you guys in due course, but when I started listening to you guys, a vampire-esque goth and a military veteran, you guys are my spiritual people. I always like your insights into what you're reviewing. You always give everyone a good laugh, and I think you guys are doing premium work. So keep it up. 8mm, I think it's a great film. You're doing you've got serious Nick Cage here as opposed to manic, crazy Nick Cage. That's a double-edged sword sometimes, but he does have the acting chops, and I think he does it well here. You've also got early Joaquin channeling the genius he'll eventually have, and you've got, of course, Peter Stormare, James Gandolfini. They're excellent in everything. On James Gandolfini, why you guys have never done The Sopranos, I do not know. You've got to do that show. It's 25 years since it aired. Think about it, guys. But yeah, on the subject of what you guys are doing, though, I started listening to you guys during the pandemic. I just lost my job. I was doing deliveries on a night shift in a pretty dark place. You guys sort of helped me pull out of that. So, respect what you guys are doing. And yeah, that's it. So please enjoy the review. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And apart from that, keep up the solid work. Peace.
Mark, this is the sort of voicemail that we get that makes me feel like we should be paying you to be able to do the movie. I love your passion for it. Love your observations on it. And again, just knowing that we make that sort of connection across the globe is really gratifying. I'm very excited to do this one for you.
I mean, Gene, a couple of weeks ago, we had Blighty.
Yeah.
Manchester, that is the epicenter of the Smiths. I would have to fly. Mark, I would go there and have a pint with you. You could take me on a tour of Strangeway Prison, take us to where the videos were filmed. This would be a great adventure. And I'm glad that you're part of our life. And I'm glad that we could help you in some dark times. It's very flattering. And it makes me really, really happy to be sitting here with my good friend, Gene Lyons, coming on year 9. So yeah. It's all for you guys. The dark times that we have coming together as a little Shat family. It's nice to hear that there is some therapeutic advantages to it besides just watching Nicolas Cage run around trying to catch a snuff film. But thank you very much for the support, and hopefully you stay with us through 2025.
8mm is a 1999 German-American crime thriller directed by Joel Schumacher and starring Nicolas Cage as a private investigator who delves into the world of snuff films. As Mark mentioned, Joaquin Phoenix, James Gandolfini, Peter Stormare, and Anthony Held appear in supporting roles. The film received mostly negative reviews, but was a box office success. So this movie came out in 1999. That was right around the time I remember Nick Cage doing stuff like Snake Eyes and Con Air, a lot of these thrillers. It was his thriller era. And I made a mental note at that time to watch it, but I was 19 years old, didn't really have the money, had a lot of other things going on socially. And so I kind of put it off. And then streaming came around and I had access to all kinds of movies. And I accidentally searched for Super 8, which is also a movie title that, has 8 in it. And I was intrigued by the synopsis of the film, so I watched that instead. Sorry, Mark, to report that at 44 years old, this was my first experience with 8mm, which, by the way, listeners, is nothing like Super 8.
No, so when this came out in 99, I had just joined the military. So I think I may have even been in boot camp when this came out. So I did not see it. But when I got out and it was on the wall of Blockbuster eventually, it just blended into a lot of other movies like Mark had mentioned. This was the time when everyone was trying to out-dark themselves. Mm-hmm. You had Silence of the Lambs came out, and it was the first time that we got to see the procedural. We got to see and be with the detectives and go through the dark case and uncover the clues. And it just kept going. So I couldn't determine any difference between, Kiss. Morgan Freeman was in a lot of these. You had Along Came a Spider. You had Kiss the Girl he was in. Then there was Copycat with Sigourney Weaver. I wasn't really drawn to seeing it. And also, it is a dark topic. It's hard to get people to watch a film that you're not going to come out of it feeling real good about yourself. I could deal with a murder or two, but a snuff film, Gene, how do you market that to the general audience?
I think Nicolas Cage, man, he's got that star
true.
Power.
That's true.
Maybe we'll find out as we hit the trailer.
This is the mortgage, Cindy's college money. If I do right by Mrs. Krishnan, the circle she runs in, this could be the break we've been waiting for. Can't take longer than a couple weeks. That's all I can tell you, honey. Sometimes you can't know what I'm doing. It's better that way.
It's always that way.
You come highly recommended, Mr. Wells. You're praised
for your discretion.
Thank you, ma'am.
As you know, my husband passed away recently.
Yes.
My husband was the only one with the combination to this safe. These were my husband's private things. I didn't realize.
Do you want to tell me what you found, Mrs. Christian?
Private Detective Tom Wells is one of the only people who has seen it. It is 8 millimeters wide. It runs at 16 frames per second. And he has been hired to discover.
All I want is to know that this atrocity is false. I want the proof of it.
If what's on it is real.
Finding the guys who made this film is going to be very difficult. I need information. I thought you might be able to help.
You name the device, I name the price. I'm gonna tell you, there's things that you're gonna see that you can't unsee. They get in your head and they stay there.
Some doors should never be opened.
Tom, where are you?
You dance with the devil. The devil don't change. The devil changes you.
Because once you go through,
I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna be okay.
there is no going back. Nicolas Cage.
I'm trying to understand!
Wherever you were, just forget about it.
I can't. There's no one left to finish this but me.
8 millimeter. A film by Joel Schumacher.
Private investigator Tom Wells is contacted by Daniel Longdale, attorney for the wealthy widow Mrs. Christian, about an 8 millimeter movie that appears to depict a real murder of a girl. After looking through missing persons files, Wells discovers the girl is Mary Ann Matthews and visits her mother Janet in North Carolina. Janet allows Wells to search her house, where he finds Mary Ann's diary, in which she says she went to Hollywood to become a film star.
So, Gene, film opens up, and we meet Nicolas Cage's character. He's playing an Ivy League graduate. His name is Tom Wells, and he has chosen to be like a private investigator. He's traveling. This is all while the credits are going on. He's traveling from his house to Miami, and he's catching cheaters. He's an expert. He's picking up on all the little details of where people are going, who they're meeting. He's annotating everything. But yet this man, when he comes home to his wife, he's been on the road for a couple weeks. He has been nonstop smoking. He is smoking a cigarette in the car. He's smoking while he's tracking down, clues. He goes back in the house and the wife says, "Hey, you've been smoking again here, Tom?" No. I've not been smoking. He's left cigarette butts in his ashtray, cigarette butts in the car. He smells like smoke. The man who is supposed to be cracking this case, immediately I'm questioning whether he can just observe anything because he's oblivious to the smell of his own body.
The smoking thing is such an odd detail to share because he's clearly not careful. He's leaving butts in an ashtray on his desk. Not a great way of hiding it, but I felt like the movie was trying to tell us something right here. This was symbolic. This was a metaphor. Maybe they originally had the idea, which you see in a lot of movies, and it's not a bad move, that Wells has this dark side, right? Maybe he had a porn addiction, or maybe he had some connection to this, environment that he was going to have to jump back into, right? The journey was going to reawaken this dark part of him. That's what I got from that, where he never completely let go of that part of himself. And I was thinking about Russ Cole in True Detective, when he has to slip back into that shit in order to kind of crack the case. Tom Wells is, I would say, a better, more upstanding moral person than I am even. He seems like this real Boy Scout. But then he's lying to his wife about smoking. I don't get it. I don't get what the point was.
No, I think there's a piece in what you just said that we're missing. The wife is treating him like he is an addict, like he's a recovering, whether it was gambling, sex addiction, some kind of a substance. She's watching him and waiting for him to lie. And maybe that was originally part of the story, but it got left out.
Also, guys, remember, this is 1999. Everybody smoked. I had a smoking dorm room. You could smoke in the dorms. It was not that you could smoke at the MVD, like while you're waiting to get your car registered. It wasn't that weird.
We see him out, he's in the field, and he really doesn't try to blend in. He just kind of stands around, and Mark had mentioned this. It's not a typical Nicolas Cage film. You think about Nicolas Cage, and you think about the crazy way that he acts, or it's like not the bees. You expect him to explode in some kind of Nicolas Cageism. But here, it's a very unique performance. He does this monotone thing. It reminded me almost of Peggy Sue Got Married. He does that, Peggy Sue. But here, it's as if he had grown up and everything is monotone. It's like all of his previous roles have just gone out the window, and he is not Nicolas Cage. Maybe he was trying to show us that he was very serious. He's a very serious detective. He doesn't fuck around. He doesn't have time to just waste words, Gene. He's on the hunt to solve a case. And it was so bizarre. The whole time I'm expecting him to do the things that made Nicolas Cage a star, and he does none of it.
And you can't even say that it was a different Nicolas Cage era. Because let's think about the movies that came before this and after this, right? This movie falls between Con Air and Face Off, which came before it, and like Gone in 60 Seconds. So it's sandwiched in a very Cage rage sort of era, right? My only guess, and Mark kind of alluded to this, is maybe Joel Schumacher had something to do with it. Because Joel Schumacher, when you look at his movies, he oscillates wildly between dead serious and whatever the fuck Batman and Robin was.
Yeah, he's a weird dude. Maybe it's Bring Out Your Dead. That's another Cage movie that we've been requested to do, where maybe this is something along that line. But you're right. Schumacher's a weird dude. From the stories in The Lost Boys to Falling Down, he likes that bizarre character. So maybe he said, hey, Nick, go with something no one will expect. Be a boring, like, husband, doing everything by the book, and let's see how that goes.
So this movie came out 25 years ago. And one of the things that we talk about on this podcast is whether they've stood the test of time. And I think part of that is also understanding like the times that we're in and how this movie would fly now. And I started thinking about the snuff film because it's supposed to be horrifying. It's supposed to be like the most taboo thing we could think of. It was locked in a vault in this millionaire's, mansion, and his wife found it. It's the sort of thing that you'd kill yourself over, right? And we don't see every detail of the 8mm snuff film, but we see enough to understand the basics, right? Marianne is a teenager. She's crying. She gets sliced up by a man in a mask. And instead of showing us the gore, her chest being slashed open or her being gutted, Schumacher instead decides that he's going to let Nick Cage react to the horrors he's witnessing on film. That's how we're going to experience it, is through Tom Wells. Talking about Cage rage here, we get, I think, a pretty over-the-top performance from Nick Cage, right?
Fantastic.
Wells is there. He's covering his eyes. He's wincing. He's writhing in his seat. It just got me thinking, like, God, Big D, like 1999, were we all just innocent? Like, was it just an innocent time? Because 2024 now, we've seen it all.
Yeah.
If I were on motherless.com or Reddit or Style Project and a video came up of a girl being cut up, I'd go, oh, gross. And then I'd just fucking move on.
I don't know. Maybe it's because everyone seems to think that the snuff films are a myth. So they're thinking maybe this didn't exist. But to me, it's shot like Fiona Apple's Criminal video. It's poorly lit. You can't, there's like some bodies writhing around. Some people look tired and like they're crying. It looks like really very 1999.
I feel like the litmus test, though, is that how did other people react to it, right? So it's 1999. You got Wells, and he's like, oh, God, oh, no. Mrs. Christian is like an 80-year-old woman in a wheelchair, and she's like, well, that girl looks like she got killed. If you could just go check it out, that'd be okay.
Yeah, but you figured, like, at her age, she'd been through the war.
Shit.
She'd been through the war. She knows what went on, She's just like, hey, lots of bad things happened during the war.
Is she a leprechaun now?
She could have been British. I don't know. Maybe she survived the bombings. You don't know what would have happened. It was a tough time during WW2. You don't know. But would I have been that shocked? I don't know. I probably should. There's only one thing, Gene, that makes me jump the way that Tom did here. Tom was very theatrical. Later on, there's a scene where two of them, we have Joaquin Phoenix and Tom again. Tom continues to be like physically shocked by it. They're sitting and watching. I believe it's a Philippine snuff film, they believe it. And it looks like a direct ripoff of Signs, M. Night Shyamalan. I think that's later on. M. Night Shyamalan probably ripped it off. Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix are watching a television broadcast about an alien invasion in Brazil. And you see like a 9-foot alien poke his head out of the bushes. And they do the exact same thing. Hands to the face, gasping, screaming. Nothing makes me act like that. The only thing that gets a physical reaction out of me, Gene, are where people like fall from great heights or where people get really hurt. Like say it's the people who try to jump off of the roof of their house and they miss the pool by about 3 or 4 feet. Or the people who like say are skateboarding and they go out into the middle of the street and they get hit by a car. The ones that really catch you off guard, getting kicked in the balls. It's that moment where it just takes your breath away and you're... Sadly, snuff films, I don't imagine, would really do that to me.
So wait, so you're saying that if you saw a dude jump off of the roof, miss the pool and hit the pool deck, that affects you, but watching a teenage girl get slashed to death by a man in a scary mask doesn't do anything?
I wouldn't believe it. I would never think it could be real. Never. I would immediately think it was fake. There's no way in my... Why would you do it? It would be so easy to fake. Even, old man Christian, he wouldn't have known whether it was real or fake. Give him a fake snuff film. For the money they paid, you could have shot something that looked real, but was clearly not.
He could have had his own movie, like 8mm.
Maybe like a 2 or 3 movie deal. You could have gone to the underground in LA and gotten him some of those from the Far East. He would have bought those. But it feels weird. It feels like the entire movie is trying to crib off of Silence of the Lambs. The music, the tone, the darkness, they're trying to go like paint by numbers, step by step. Okay, we're going to find the killer. We're going to locate the facts. We're going to find the hidden notebooks. But there's a big difference in those films like Silence of the Lambs that work and this one that necessarily doesn't for me. You got Clarice. Clarice Starling, we follow her. She's at the academy. We're on her side. She's vulnerable. She's determined. She's flawed. She's invested into the case. Now let's look at Tom, played by the monotone Nicolas Cage. He is detached. He doesn't seem to really care about anyone, including his family and child. He says he does, but we don't see the actions that really demonstrate that. He's an unrelatable character. You can't root for him. He's an asshole. When he finds clues, does he give it to a grieving mother who is crying, I wish I knew where my daughter was? No. He just takes it, writes his notes, then leaves it somewhere she'll find it. When he finds clues that could help the police, does he do something that might bring the person to justice? No, he doesn't do any of that. And it's missing that connective emotional empathy, I think. He never seems to demonstrate until the very end, which is a real quick change, that Marianne is anything more than a case. That is all she is to him. He never gets emotional. I think, Gene, and I want to know what your thoughts on this. I think the reason why Silence of the Lambs works is because Clarice sympathizes with the victim in the well. She sympathizes with the big girl who was skinned. She sympathizes with all of the characters. If Tom had shown, maybe we saw a little backstory of Marianne going to LA, of Marianne's struggle, of Marianne being abused, Marianne not making it. When she finally turns up missing, we have some skin in the game.
Normally, Big D, I am a big proponent of less being more. Let us use our imaginations a little bit. The diary should suffice. But this is the rare scenario where having Marianne in the movie would have helped a lot. You're absolutely right. And they didn't have to do it linear, show us Marianne being killed and then flash forward to Nicolas Cage investigating the thing. they could have been creative with this, maybe shoot it out of sequence or do that parallel sort of treatment like Westworld, to where we don't realize that Marianne is the girl in the snuff film. Like you have like these parallel things happening. Like you see this girl who's trying to make it, and then you also see Nick Cage investigating it, and you think that it's all happening at the same time. But in fact, then you realize at that moment, oh God, she's the girl in the snuff film. Beyond that, though, if you're going to represent Marianne's story, the journal aspect was just so hammy and so over the top because a couple of reasons. One, no teen keeps a diary like this, okay? Especially a teen who's in the circumstances that Marianne is under, where she's kind of not very affluent. She's in a small town. She's apparently not super well educated if she's like thinking that this dream is going to come true for her or whatever. But then also she keeps it hidden like in a toilet tank that no cops looked at when they were searching for it. Come on. And it lays out the entire prologue, what her motivations were, who else was involved in it, where she was going. It's quite detailed.
Yes, and that's the difference. This movie at the end turns into 3 separate movies in one. Take that part off and here, build on it, Gene. You're 100% correct. Make us care. Don't half-ass this fucking journal that she put in like a Ziploc bag and hid in the top tank of a toilet. That's not some shit a normal, well-adjusted kid does. That needs to be examined more.
So before Tom leaves on this whole journey and meets Janet and becomes obsessed with Marianne and all this stuff, we get to see his relationship with his wife. And I think what Joel Schumacher is trying to tell us here is that there is some passion between these two, but also there's the added complication of the child and his career and everything. And we get this scene where they're having like conspicuous under the blanket sex, which is call me crazy. Maybe it's because we're Southern people. I don't know, but it's not my thing.
Cold.
Yeah. but Sarah and I have 4 dogs. And these dogs have no problem interrupting sex, okay? They'll jump on the bed, sniff your ass. They'll bark at neighbors while standing on the bed and sniffing your ass. They have no regard for ruining the mood. And I've learned to just sort of ignore them unless it sounds like a fight's about to break out, right? You don't want dogs fighting while your dick is out. But 8mm, it really wants us to know Wells and his wife, they love each other despite this tension. And we get this awkward sex scene that's interrupted by baby crying. And I'm like, fuck, I don't have a child. I've never experienced a baby in the house. Do people normally stop having sex when the baby cries? Because with a puppy, you're supposed to let them cry it out. Like if they're barking and crying, so if you got to leave them alone so they learn like, hey, you're okay. I'm not going to come running every time you cry. I thought that was the same thing with babies. Like if they cry, you just keep fucking.
Well, I think there's a difference. Like a baby's age is really important.
Okay.
If it's a young baby and the baby's crying, the baby could have flipped over, could have got arm caught in a crib. You really should see why is the baby crying. You get in tune with what the child is doing. So if it's a screaming cry, you got to stop. You got to go check this human. And I know you love your dogs. And imagine like sweaty Arizona, Gene Lyons, Sarah sex. It must be so delightful for the dogs because the smells that must be going on in their room, they must be like, this smells, what is this? There's something happening. They must love it.
My theory on it is, and I'm not saying you're wrong, it might be compounded by the fact we're not horizontal or sitting still until the day is over. Typically, they get to see us awake and in bed for maybe 30 minutes, and the rest of the time we're asleep. So they're like, holy shit. They're in bed. They're lying down and they're not asleep. Like, this is amazing. They're at our level. We could be eye to eye or nose to ass with them. So the smells.
It must be great.
The horizontal positioning. It's like catnip to dogs.
It's got to be delightful. If they love smelling each other's ass, they must be like, oh, this is my shot. I'm going to get up there in Gene's ass. Oh, Sarah smells delightful. This is great. There's times like as your children get older to where they start to communicate, where they'll start to talk to people, they'll start to talk to their friends, and or like a kid will talk about your anatomy. That is now you're like, okay, and how do you get them to not say it in public? When you start having sex, and they might not understand what's going on, and they hear you verbalizing it, that's when it gets kind of weird, and it does kill the mood. It does make it harder because you don't want to have to stop. You don't want to have to try to explain it. You don't want to scar your kid. It's a weird situation.
Obviously, I grew up in a single parent household. My mom didn't have boyfriends or dudes or anything around. So I did not realize this was the thing. You have sex while the child is in the house?
No, we don't, but not everybody is like that.
Oh, okay.
Early on, I tried to push those boundaries, and I was met with resistance. So I understand the trying to be safe. At 9 years old, it would fucking scar Emma. If she walked in on that, that's something I would never want my daughter to experience.
Dude, no offense, but like having been between your legs, fucking at 44 years old, it'll still scar you. You're
Yes.
a very big person. I can't wrap my head around the whole situation.
No, she could walk in, and that would be years of therapy.
Yeah,
to unsee that. So yeah, out there, people, just be respectful of your kids. You remember what it was like. You never wanted to walk in on your parents. Don't be the parents that let your kids walk in on you.
With the help of sex shop employee Max California, Wells delves into the world of underground fetish pornography, finding no evidence that a snuff film industry exists. Contact with talent scout Eddie Poole leads Wells and Max to Dino Velvet, a director of violent pornography whose films often feature Machine, a masked man who brutalizes women. Wells recognizes Machine from the film he's investigating and poses as a client commissioning a film directed by Velvet and starring Machine. Velvet agrees and arranges a meeting in New York City.
So Tom, he's a bit of a straight-laced. He's not going to blend in as he's going on to his investigation. So he partners up with Max California, Joaquin Phoenix, and they're going to go investigate the dark underground. It starts pretty tame and it looks like some flea markets with some films, and then they start going to clubs, and it's the underground porn ring. So he's trying to fit in. You spot him coming a mile away. And even Max warns him. He says, listen, you got to be careful here with these people. Every place, Gene, that they stop, all the criminals, they say, are you associated with law enforcement or the police? You have to tell me. This is a movie thing, because we see it all during this time period where all these criminals, career criminals, if you've been arrested, you should know when you have to have your Miranda rights read. You would know, hey, did you offer me an attorney? You know the process. You know what to do. Why do the criminals always, specifically in this movie, think that you have to tell them if you're a cop?
What would the point even be of going undercover if someone could uncover you by being like, hey, are you a cop? But in 1999, I fucking believe this. I totally thought the cops had to tell you if they're cops, which, I mean, I admit it now as an older adult, that makes no sense at all. But as a 19-year-old, I thought that was real.
And that's acceptable as a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
But as a seasoned, a connoisseur of snuff and violent German porn, wouldn't you know it? And of course, they all go, no, we're not with the police. We're not with the police. But he's still walking around like he's taking notes and he's working for the police.
And again, with that whole cigarette thing, with the whole not calling your wife thing, I keep getting the sense that as Wells is getting deeper and deeper into this underground, that he's going to be somehow seduced by it, right? That it's going to become a part of him. As you stare into the abyss, it stares back into you. And a recurring theme of 8mm is Wells neglecting his home life in pursuit of this case. At first, you see he starts to forget to call his wife every night, and then he starts cutting the calls short, but he's still telling his wife that he misses her and the baby. Dude, if you miss your wife and the baby, go see them. You have a client willing to pay loads of money. Okay, Mrs. Christian is a millionaire who wants this case solved, and she wants Wells specifically. You're working a cold case. It's not like time is of the essence, right? I know consultants who I work with who fly home on the weekends on these things, Big D, they're called airplanes.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine that all Wells had to do is say, hey, Mrs. Christian, I'll work this missing persons case to find out if this girl actually died and see where she is, if she's alive. I'm going to work 40 hours a week. I'm going to fly home 2 days a week. It's not like I think Marianne is in danger. This is probably a fake film. And realistically, there's two outcomes for Marianne, right? She's either already dead because this movie is years old, or she's out there living a normal life. What's the rush?
See, but I'm getting a different vibe because I'm already thinking in my head of 7. And what's in the box? What's in the box? All of these phone calls home, I was like, oh, fuck. Someone is going to pay his wife and child a visit at the end of this film. They're laying the groundwork for that transition for him to get like the devil is going to come out and change him. I thought it was foreshadowing an obvious tragic event that was going to happen because he is, oh, I love you. Can I talk to the baby? Oh, she's sleeping. And it's real lovey-dovey. I'm like, oh shit, this is going to go really badly. Gene, he is sticking to the non-disclosure agreement, really to the letter law. You don't have to tell who the client is. You don't have to give the details of the film. Just tell your wife, I'm going to LA. There's a film that a client wants to get verified, whether it's real or fake. I'm going to be investigating their sex crimes. Let her know some of it.
I'm married to a doctor. She is bound by HIPAA to keep patient confidentiality. That does not mean that she cannot tell me about a patient and a case and something that she dealt with at work. It means that she cannot identify who that person was or the details of a specific person's case. But if she says, hey, we had somebody come in today, they had an ACL tear, and I work with them with these specific exercises, that's okay. And this guy doesn't even have those boundaries.
No, and he's going the opposite way. He is repeatedly almost like taunting her. He's giving her so little information that makes her question. And he shows up and he's like, oh, this is terrible. It's terrible things that are going on. It's so dark. I got to leave. And he just leaves. And she goes, where are you going? Are you okay? Then he doesn't call. Then he comes running back and he says, our lives are in danger. We have to leave. The case is, our family is not safe. The emotional well-being, we have to leave. They leave. He says, okay, I'll be right back. Then he leaves again. He comes back. And each time he leaves like a little bit of cryptic warnings and he's more beaten. He's more injured. He's darker. And she gets zero information from him.
This is the one that would set me off, Big D, is if you came up to me and you're like, Gene, I can't tell you what's going on. I don't know why we got this accent now for Wells, but I can't tell you what's going on, but I'm not going to let anybody hurt you.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. Someone's coming to hurt me?
Yeah. Somebody's going, Gene, our lives, we're not safe, Gene. We have to leave. We have to leave. I'll never leave you again, except for right now. I have to leave right now. And then he disappears. He has to be one of the worst husbands we've reviewed on the podcast, but we've already talked about, Nicolas Cage. What blew me away for the cast was all of the characters and all of the future stars that pop up in some of these little roles that I was blown away by the people they got and see some of these fresh faces. And I remember like Simon Cowell had said this on American Idol once, you could spot it within the first 3 or 4 notes, whether or not somebody can sing. I don't need a full song. You can tell when people have talent, even in small doses. And in this, we get a couple of them. When we go to the prison and we're going to meet Marianne's ex-boyfriend, the guy who's going to take her to California, he's the Anderson boy, and he's in prison. And it is a fresh-faced Norman Reedus. He's maybe young, like early 20s. He looks like a kid, and he's swinging a mop. And in a couple words, he's holding his ground with Nicolas Cage, Hollywood heavyweight. He's showing why later on he became a star of, the Walking Dead, Boondock Saints. He's credible now as an actor. And then Joaquin Phoenix. We meet him. He's Max. He's working in a sex shop. And we meet him with the greatest line. And he's giving him the spiel to cash register because Tom is buying a bunch of porn and magazines. He's trying to do some research. And he's, sir, can I offer you a battery-operated vagina? And he's like, no. He's like, well, I would hate for you to be in a situation where you really require a battery-operated vagina. He's quirky. He's sarcastic. He's perfect. And these characters keep popping up throughout the film. And as much as this film's got problems, there's so much there to like.
I don't disagree, but the outfits that they put Joaquin Phoenix in were so unfair. Okay, Big D, look at Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah.
He's creepy. He's already creepy. He already looks like a guy that works at a porn shop, okay? He does not need to be put into one size too small shirts with mesh to tell you Joaquin Phoenix is a weirdo. You saw him in Gladiator? He's a fucking weirdo. You know what would be better? Just play off the fact that he's Joaquin Phoenix, okay? Black t-shirt and jeans, I'll buy it. Okay? Better yet, put him in like glasses, a tie, and slacks. Even weirder. That's fine too. But the things that they put him in, you could tell it was very Hackers. Oh, he's edgy. He works in Hollywood at a porn shop.
Yeah, there's nobody who wears those cut-off belly tees. It was uncomfortable. You could tell that was the one thing in the role that made him uncomfortable more than all the porn. It was that t-shirt.
It looked like Joaquin Phoenix in a costume as opposed to an actual character.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there.
So the meeting with Velvet turns out to be an ambush. The 8mm film turns out to be real, and Longdale turns out to be the one who commissioned it. Velvet and Machine produce a bound and beaten Max, forcing Wells to bring them the only surviving copy of the film. Once Wells delivers the film, Longdale and Velvet burn it and kill Max. Wells reveals that Longdale withheld money from Velvet, Poole, and Machine, causing his captors to turn on one another. In the ensuing fight, Velvet and Longdale are killed, and Wells wounds Machine and escapes.
So, Jane, occasionally the films we review cross over into our lives. When I hear the location of their filming this porn, this custom-made Tom film, do you know where it was, Gene?
New York?
Hoyt Avenue. Do you know where Do you know where Hoyt Avenue is near, Gene? It's in Brooklyn. Where is it near?
Hoyt Avenue is near the water.
It is near Red Hook. It is very close. It is walking distance to where we started the Chop Trop Challenge.
Look at that.
You know, now if we knew this, we could have gone and maybe tried to find the filming location. I'm sure it was just a set, but the address is right down there because Gene, earlier in the year, he drives around in a car with the roof cut off. I tried to join him, but unfortunately, I was not man enough to do it. So it was nice to see the Brooklyn location there, and it won me every time.
Okay, Big D says he wasn't man enough to do it. Big D was on diuretics at the time during a road trip.
Well, I just had surgery, heart surgery. So that was...
It's like saying you weren't man enough to pee your pants when it was 28 degrees outside and you had to sit in a car in your own piss.
So, Gene, at this point, the entire conspiracy unravels. Everybody's there. You got Eddie, you got Machine, you've got Longdale, you've got Dino, and it's like a Reservoir Dogs situation. Everybody's pulled out their weapon. Everybody's shot. So now you got Longdale's down with a bolt in his chest. I think he's dead. You got Max up on the cross, throat slit. He's dead. The Machine is down, stabbed, correct?
Yep.
He's stabbed. The only one who's upright is Eddie. And Eddie is looking now. We got a standoff. He's looking at Tom. Tom is handcuffed to the bed. He's got one bullet. In my head, I'm screaming, easy fucking decision. You shoot Eddie. You put him down. At this point, these are all the conspirators we believe. At this point, you could end it. They already have your wife's location. They have your address. They've threatened to put your wife and child in a movie. You shoot Eddie. And he chooses possibly the worst decision, Gene. And he shoots at his handcuffs. First of all, as someone who fires with it, what do you think is the likelihood of that frees him?
Yeah, not good.
No.
At the same time, I was just at the range Sunday. And I got to tell you, one-handed with what looked like a 9mm at that range, I'm not confident I would hit Eddie either.
But wouldn't you say, Eddie, come here. Draw him closer. Tom has a lot of people in this movie don't have a problem getting within 2 or 3 feet, striking distance.
Yeah, it's true.
You could have said, he doesn't know if you could hit him. He doesn't know how good of a shot. Come here. We're going to talk. Instead, shoots the handcuff. Eddie's off into the wind running, and now you're stuck. This is the worst decision he could have made, and the least likely, again, to save his wife and daughter from a vengeful Eddie making a phone call to some potential hitman and says, hey, go to his house, get the wife, get the daughter. We're going to make him pay.
The bigger mistake is not casing out the joint first. Have you read The Art of War, Big D? Did they require that when you were in Sapper school?
They have not.
Okay. Sun Tzu In The Art of War, the most famous quote from it, right? Whoever is first in the field and awaits the coming of the enemy will be fresh for the fight. Whoever is second in the field and has to hasten to battle will arrive exhausted. Sun Tzu says, if you have the opportunity, you get to the battlefield first. Now, normally, in most movies, the bad guys are smart and they don't reveal the meetup location until just before the meetup because they don't want you to be able to case it out. They don't want you to be able to set up. Velvet, he fucking tells Wells the spot way in advance. Motherfucker, go there early. Big D and I have been there. We know how to get there. It's not that hard to get to. Go there early, stake the place out. Watch to see who shows up. You don't see any girls in your binoculars? Call that shit off. You see Dino show up with a fucking crossbow? Maybe you call the thing off. Don't walk straight into it like a dipshit. And he walks for a while.
Or you hire somebody else to be watching you. If I don't call back within this length of time, you go to the police.
Maybe Max.
Well, yeah, he brought Max with him because he wasn't a credible fan of Dino in case they again said what were your favorite films or roles or whatever. But again, this is all, remember, he is a PI.
Yeah.
His job was very simple, but yet he's turning in here now into the investigating cop. He is not a cop. He's flashing his little PI badge like that would do anything. People be like, you're not a cop. Get the fuck out of here. Why is he actively putting himself in danger? When he was out in LA, Gene, he is sneaking onto the set of an active like pornography, like a film being shot. He gets caught. There's drugs. There's automatic weapons. It's dangerous. The only way he escapes is he tricks the guy into falling into the empty pool with his gun. You're not a PI, dude. You were hired for one simple thing. Can you verify, is the tape real or fake? Anything beyond that scope is going beyond his job, and there's no reason that he should be doing it. He doesn't care about Marianne. He doesn't care about her mother. He was hired to answer that question. Let's assume that Mrs. Christian kept escalating. Okay, we'll go the next step. I'll pay you the money and wanted to find out everything. But why are you risking your life? Why are you risking your family when you obviously don't care about bringing the person to justice or actually what happened?
One of the things I love about films and books that involve private investigators is generally the non-violent ways they figure things out, right? Their job is to figure out what happened, to investigate. And there are so many ways that Wells could have done this without actively putting himself in danger, as you said, Big D. For example, right? You call Eddie, you've got his phone line tapped, okay? You call Eddie, you say, hey, I know the girl is dead. I'm not saying you did it. And I'll leave you alone if you just tell me she's dead. And even if he doesn't tell you then, listen in on his calls. He doesn't know he's tapped. Listen on his calls for like a week. Find out. That's the only thing you were hired to do, right? This is about mission creep.
Right.
The movie is real. The girl is dead. Pay me. I'm out.
Yeah, even maybe he could have found out that Longdale was involved. And I'm sure that the wife would have liked to have known that. That might have gotten him a couple extra grand bonus.
Might have, right?
You think the wife might have asked that question? Was it real? And who made it for him? Longdale.
And I have an additional complaint. It's one complaint that I had with Rob on the Outland episode, right? Films that forget about the bigger crime. In Outland, Sean Connery, his sergeant, is murdered while Sean Connery is investigating drugs. Okay? I would say a fucking murderer is a little more pressing and personal than drugs being willingly used. In this movie, we get Wells. He barely escapes an ambush that leaves a porn director and an attorney dead, while a masked sadist has a massive gut wound on the warehouse floor in Brooklyn. I don't know. Maybe call the police. Maybe call the police and say, hey, there's a fucking masked man with a fucking stab wound and 2 dead bodies in this warehouse. Go check it out. Instead, what does Wells do? He doesn't do any of that shit. He goes, flies home, says, wife, I'll be right back, goes and visits Mrs. Christian before hunting down, I don't know, Eddie and Machine or calling the police.
No, you missed a step there.
Oh, shit.
So he lets Eddie escape. Maybe Eddie is like calling hitmen to go up to the wife. He doesn't immediately go there. He flies there, finally gets to his wife, takes her to a hotel, and says, you're in grave danger. Is there more serious danger? No, grave danger. And he says, but I have to leave. He leaves her there again alone. Then he flies. It's ridiculous. Go to the police. Yes, you've collected illegal evidence. You've had an illegal wiretap. You've broken a lot of laws, but you didn't kill anybody. You have to think about your family at this point. You let one of the people go away. And that's the problem with Tom. Tom does not respect the law. He does not respect evidence. None of what he collects is admissible in court. None of it. He goes to the homeless shelter in the beginning, gets the big break, where the nun remembers Marianne, gives the suitcase. That whole suitcase is now non-admissible. It doesn't get into court. Then he does the wiretap on Eddie. None of the information he learns in the wiretap is admissible. He is not a good guy. He is fucking up the case left and right. Anything he finds out, no one's being brought to justice. He just wants a paycheck in the end. But once your family is being threatened, they threatened to film a snuff film with his daughter and wife. You go home immediately or call the police and say, get my family in protective custody.
He's not a cop.
He's a fucking idiot.
Wells calls Mrs. Christian to tell her his discoveries and instructs her to call the police. Arriving at her estate, Wells is told that Mrs. Christian committed suicide after hearing the news. She left envelopes for the Matthews family and Wells. Wells' envelope contains the rest of his payment and a note reading, "Try to forget us," in very adorable old lady handwriting. Wells warns his wife of the impending danger and to seek shelter in a location known only to them. He hands her his half of the money.
So I was wondering from the very beginning, what was her motivation? Was this going to be a case where she was trying to protect the family, trying to protect the name? She didn't want any kind of controversy. And I'm still left with some questions because her actions. Yeah, she comes out with an envelope. She looks distraught. The help around, are very distraught. She doesn't ask about Longdale. He doesn't mention Longdale. That would have been helpful to say, yes, the tape was real and Longdale's the one who filmed him. Because we've learned that Longdale got paid out $1 million in cash. The wealth of this family, Gene, who live in the estate, is so large that this man could take out $1 million in cash and it would not show up in any audit. No one in his family knew it was missing. But yet, Miss Christians comes out with her. She's racked with guilt. She has a legal size envelope. This isn't a manila folder. Yes, it's stuffed with cash. I did all kinds of research, Gene, to say, what is the largest amount of US dollars that could fit into a legal envelope? I couldn't get an answer, but I'm imagining maybe what was in there, Gene? $100,000 for him, $50,000 for Marianne's mother. Is that really what their lives were worth, Gene?
I mean, we talked about this before, Big D. College back then, dirt fucking cheap. But also there's the possibility that Mrs. Christian is just out of touch with what things cost, okay? She's incredibly old. And I know this for a fact. I'm 44. I don't know what things cost anymore.
Yeah, but she knows the going rate for a young girl to be murdered is $1 million. Wouldn't you think it's $1 million to kill her?
Yeah,
it's $1 million to feel sad.
It's not worth $1 million to have it investigated.
No, but it's
Come on, man.
Oh, so what's it worth to the mother? What's the insurance policy on the daughter? Hey, I'm sorry, your daughter died.
I mean, Janet works at the fucking Piggly Wiggly. I think she'd be happy with like $10,000 for her kid.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
How much do you think a 20-inch wooden handled shovel costs, Big D? Don't Google it.
Like right now?
Yeah, right now.
A wooden handled shovel, like 20
inches.
That's at least $55.
$20.
No.
Yeah, $20 at Lowe's.
No.
How about this one? Big Mac combo at McDonald's. So Big Mac fries and a drink.
$12.
$9. See?
I don't believe
You don't know what
this.
shit costs. You don't know what a girl costs.
No, 20-inch wooden handled shovel? No way. You're full of shit. $20.
I'll send you one for Christmas, motherfucker.
I don't believe
$20.
No. Is this like some kind of like a Black Friday sale?
No, it's what it normally costs.
I don't think so. Mm-hmm. You're thinking like a little gardening shovel, like you would do.
It is a 20-inch shovel with a metal shovel head and a wooden handle.
Oh, I thought you were saying like it was a big 20-inch like blade, like the spade was 20 inches and it's a long wood handle. You're talking about like a little thing for gardening, right?
Whoa, easy with the language there, pal.
You're talking about something for small work. You're not talking about something.
Are you thinking about the Big Mac combo was a double Big Mac or something?
Again, maybe it's your Arizona prices. That's not. we're in the East Coast.
Florida McDonald's is a little different. Mm-hmm. Wrapping up the movie, Wells decides to seek justice for Marianne by killing the remaining people involved. He calls Mrs. Matthews to tell her about her daughter and obtains her permission to punish those responsible. He pistol whips Poole to death with his gun and stabs Machine to death at his mother's home. After returning to his family, Wells breaks down in front of his wife. Months later, Wells receives a letter from Mrs. Matthews thanking him and relating her gratitude for caring about Mary Ann. So, Big D, we talked about all the stars in this movie. Finally, I want to get to James Gandolfini. And this movie came out in 1999. So it coincided with the Sopranos first episode. Sopranos first episode came out in January 1999. A month later, 8mm hit theaters. And I'm pretty sure, looking at Eddie Poole, looking at Tony Soprano, I think James Gandolfini was recycling some shit here. There were so many parallels between these two characters, right? They're both morally ambiguous. They're both violent. They're both deceptive. I felt like Eddie Poole even kind of dressed like Tony Soprano a little bit. But then I thought about it. Wait a minute. Eddie Poole came before Tony Soprano. So maybe Tony Soprano is doing like the Eddie Poole finger thing.
No, he's the perfect prototype of a tough guy criminal. He's the perfect embodiment of that character. There is nobody better. That is him. That is perfect. Tony Soprano is Eddie Poole. It is all one human being. He is the apex criminal. He's amazing. And that's why it's so hard for me, Gene, to understand or to believe how this straight-laced, I can't blend into the underground LA porn scene has turned into John Wick. He is an Ivy League educated PI, but yet he is handling this hardened street pornographer who's built like James Gandolfini. James Gandolfini looks like he's got giant bare hands, like hairy knuckles. Like he would choke the life out of you and bury you, Gene, with that 20-inch wood-handled D-transfer shovel, which is on sale for $14.95 at Lowe's right now. He would fucking bury you and beat you with that shovel, but yet somehow Nick Cage is turned into John Wick.
Anybody who doubts Big D, by the way, about James Gandolfini, he's not one of those actors that like looks like a big dude, but he's actually a small dude like Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy's like 5'9" or something like that, right? Gandolfini's 6 feet tall, and he's a bulky man.
Fuck yes.
No one to be trifled with. Also, by the way, I did some research on him. He seemed like a pretty stand-up dude. Pretty humble beginnings. Actually, his dad bought tires at the tire shop that John Travolta's dad owned. So like they were buddies growing up. He paid his dues on the acting scene, did Broadway, all that stuff.
Fucking blue collar to the fucking bone.
And when he died, when he had his fatal heart attack, he was in Italy with his son, seeing the sights at the hotel, just dropped dead. Good man, God rest his soul.
Yeah.
And if I can switch gears here, I'm going to go to self-defense, Gene. If you are going to pistol whip James Gandolfini to death, okay, don't do it with the magazine end of your handgun. You see that all the time in the movies. And it goes back to when there were revolvers, okay? Maybe then it was all right. But with a magazine-fed, semi-automatic handgun, you do not want to hit with the magazine side. Aside from the possibility of ruining your weapon, you could cause a misfire, making it very easy for investigators to recognize that your gun was involved. Let's examine the scene here, okay? You're a PI. You know how evidence works, okay? You know how clues work. You've got an abandoned building full of debris. Eddie's car is right there, full of heavy objects and tools. You can pick from literally any object to bash in this dude's head. You could strangle him with the electrical wire that you just pulled out of the wall. If you insist on still hitting him with the gun that you fucking own, hit him with the shooty end. Don't break your gun.
Hit him with the shooty end. But Gene, he's got him already. He's got the wire around his throat. put a stick in there and twist it a couple times, you'll choke him out. He's got him. He's defeated this legitimate badass. And then he leaves. He leaves to go call and twist the knife into the grieving mother's back. And again, he asks her, do you really want to know? Do you really want to know? He doesn't wait for her to say, yes, I want to know the dark truth of what happened. He blurts out, I found the men. They killed her. They buried her. Give me permission. Tell me you loved her. Tell me you loved her. He comes back in, and Tom, not a smart guy, even though they keep telling us this, he's going to now beat him with the gun. And James Gandolfini's character keeps telling him, hey, you're too much of a pussy. What are you going to do? You know, he taunts him even more. So finally he kills him. Gene, there is evidence everywhere. There's evidence in Brooklyn. There's evidence here. He's touching the car. He's touching everything around. There is no way that Tom is getting out of this without going to jail. So, Gene, this suspenseful mystery that was working fairly well up until this point goes off the rails, and they seem to not know how to close it. The last 25 minutes, you could lop it off. Have him kill Eddie. He walks off. He's devastated. He sends a letter to the mom, whatever. You close it out. Instead, they want to go full tilt, like revenge tale. This is going to be like Payback, where Tom now is going to break the law. He's going to take justice into his own hand. And it shifts from the original theme. Tom's now breaking the law. He is now murdering people. He's become a vigilante. This isn't a tale of investigation. This isn't a tale of answering whether or not the tape was real. He is now going out there. He's becoming John Wick. He's running around with a silenced weapon. He now breaks into Machine's house after he's surveilling it. The mother's there. They now turn this into a superhero film where Machine and Tom start to fight. They're throwing each other through the windows. They're falling out into a rainy, like thunderstruck, stormy, like cemetery in the back. They're fighting, Gene. There's knives being stabbed. There's, again, the gun being like brought up. Machine talks his way out of being shot. He stabs him. It's like a huge mess of genres. Was it a mystery? Was it a thriller? You didn't need the revenge plot. You didn't need to turn into a superhero action flick. It just lost me at the end.
So many things had to happen for this ending to come about, and none of those things make sense. First of all, we see Machine. He's stabbed in the gut in New York, and he takes himself all the way home to get patched up, I guess. And then he's feeling well enough to fight. I don't know how many of you out there have been stabbed in the belly with a giant knife, but I don't think you're feeling too good. He also has to be waiting. He's so alert that Tom's going to show up and they're going to battle this out. And then we get this, you're talking about big D action movie, knife throw. For those of you who haven't seen the movie, this is Frank Sabatka from The Wire. That's the guy playing Machine. Whew. Throws a knife, flings it 5 yards through the air, sticks Wells in the gut. Big D, have you ever tried to throw a knife at anything?
Yes, as a child, I tried to.
Yeah, how'd that work out?
Not very well.
No,
a lot of like deflections. I was more likely to hit myself in the shin than get it to stick in a tree.
I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast before, but we do like knife defenses in Krav Maga. One time they asked the chief instructor, they're like, "Well, what if the guy's got a knife and you try to run from him and he throws it at you?" And he says, "If a guy can hit you while you're running with a knife and kill you, he deserves to kill you."
He does.
I'll give it to you, man. Like, fucking nice one.
Yeah, that's the least of my fears, is that someone is going to throw and stick. Unless they've been going to those axe throwing bars, which are kind of trendy now. That's the only way I'd fear it.
But you're absolutely right. It doesn't end as a murder mystery. It's not quite an action flick. It's not a revenge flick. And our protagonist, whose one power is supposed to be that he understands clues, he understands evidence, he understands the way crimes unfold and how to find a person anywhere based on the smallest little detail. He's smoking cigarettes at the scene of Eddie's murder. And not to mention all the women who saw a strange man going to the porn casting agent's office just days before he died looking for Eddie Poole, or the guy that rented space to that same man in a window across the street. Also, we mentioned Max is dead. There's dead bodies in a warehouse. This is all going to come back on Wells. This is not going to be a happy ending for him.
No, he has to. And I think maybe they're trying to show us that he has gone, this has affected him so deeply.
You don't care.
That he's a changed man. He's no longer the logical PI, because the evidence, it's everywhere. You have the Brooklyn, all the evidence there, and the fight in the cemetery. Yeah, it's raining, so maybe it washed away some of the blood, some of the DNA, right? But the knife wound, the local man showed up at the hospital with a suspicious knife wound on this night. Then the police have to somehow come and investigate Tom because Tom is also wounded. Then he compounds it, Gene, which is the dumbest fucking thing in the world. He writes a full confession to Janet Matthews, the mother, Mary Ann's mother. He writes in there saying, yes, I killed those men. What if she's upset, Gene? You just gave her, you lied to her, you violated her trust. How does she know you're telling the truth? Maybe you're trying to buy her off. Maybe you're part of the conspiracy. He has now written down his real name, his address, everything that happened, as well as all of the forensic evidence. I gotta hope that this man is going to jail and the wife will do some good with that money.
And now is the time in the podcast where we give our Shat score for 8mm. The Shat score is our way of telling you how many wipes this movie would take to get off your respective butts. 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It's being the Jim Jarmusch of S&M. And 5 wipes is an absolute disaster of a film. It's getting drummed out of the pornographers union. I'll go first, Big D. This is a horribly written movie with a really great cast. And I suppose it sort of proves that great actors can turn trash into treasure because we've got James Gandolfini, Joaquin Phoenix, Peter Stormare, Norman Reedus, Chris Bauer, and Anthony Held. They are so fun to watch that it is hard to criticize an otherwise imperfect movie. I had fun watching it, and that's worth something. I'm going to go 1.5 wipes.
Gene, I think you're very kind. I'm going to do 2.75 wipes. If you shaved off 30 minutes of this film, I think it could be great. It would be fantastic if you added the little layers about Mary Ann and the backstory and building Tom's compassion and why his wife was questioning him, and take out the ridiculous action at the end and the missteps for a smart man. They tried to make this a catch-all. We're going to get all the kids who want action. We're going to get the dads who want. It was just fucking too much. It didn't know what it was. But in there, I think if somebody edited this down, it would be a good film. But unfortunately, that's not what we watched. I think it's 2.75 wipes.
All right, with 2 3/4 wipes from Big D and 1.5 wipes from me, that gives us an average wipe score of 2.125 wipes for Nicolas Cage's 8mm.
So, Gene, again, it always seems to somehow work out. That now ties us in the 172 spot with Bad Boys and a film you mentioned, Hackers, as well as Airplane and Stripes.
It's quite a spectrum.
Yes. A spectrum, yes. Yeah, it's just sad. What could have been that cast? It's beautifully shot. It's just weird enough, and it's just at the end you couldn't nail it down.
Well, that wraps it up for 8mm. Big D, what do we have coming up next week?
Gene, next week, thankfully, we're going to go to a lighter place. In the small New England town of Charleston, the local mill is about to lay off 10,000 workers. The town's minor league hockey team, the Charleston Chiefs, is doing no better. After years of failure, this will be the team's last season. Exasperated players and coach Reggie let the team's recent acquisition, the Hanson brothers, play, and the brothers' active violence and thuggish style of play excites the fans. Dunlop retools the team using violence to draw big crowds, commissioned by John W. And I have to be honest, Gene, I have never seen this film in its entirety. And this is a classic that is well beyond its day for Shat movies.
This is going to be a really special one for me, Big D. I'm a big Paul Newman fan, obviously, but also John and I worked together for many, many years. He's no longer at my day job. So I'm very excited to do this one for him. And also just to reconnect with him through this movie is going to be really, really great because I miss that guy a lot, especially around the holidays. So thanks, John, for the commission. Really excited to do it. Thank you, Mark, for your commission. I hope you have a great 2025. Thank you to all the commissioners who make this podcast possible. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, and Blue Sky at Shat the Movies. You can email us, host@shatpod.com. Support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or by commissioning your own movie. Find all that information by visiting our website, shatpod.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, Review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all that information on our website, shatpod.com/TV, wherever fine podcasts can be found, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, and if you stop by Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. It helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-host, Big D, I'm Gene Lyons. Happy New Year, and be sure to join us next week for the following movie.
I'm placing a personal bounty on the head of Tim McCracken.
You can't put a bounty on a man's head.
I just did.
Go get him, killer!
It's wild. It's outrageous. It's outrageously funny. Paul Newman, Coach Reggie Dunlop in this supercharged world of hockey, invites you to meet the crazies who make it that way. The players, Murderers Row. The wives, the fans, the managers.
We're losing!
Teamwork, guys, more team.
They're burying us alive!
Who are these guys? They brought their toys with them.
And hustling them all, Paul Newman.
Oh, you are very clever.
Leave him. My wife left me. I was driving her crazy.
Get out! You can't make him win. You're a losing coach.
Okay, guys, show us what you got.
Behind the comedy, the sex, the wild excitement. This is the absorbing story of one man fighting to hang on in a world gone absurd.
They don't want you to score goals. They want blood. They're booing you.
There's never been a film like Slapshot. There may never be another.